In times of darkness, one needs to cling on to hope and meaning. To quote Freddie Newman, the great New York philosopher, to live as a Knicks fan is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. That meaning takes three forms. The first form is Kyrie and KD, which is a pipe dream. The second form of meaning is Zion Williamson, which probability-wise is more likely to not happen than it is to happen. The last form of meaning that exists for Knicks fans is in the form of a young man by the name of Mitchell Robinson. Before we get into it, a quick shout out from SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video. Buying tickets can often be a stressful process, mostly because you're always wondering, am I getting the best deal on this? Am I getting scammed by this website? SeatGeek solves all of those problems because it compares the different prices on websites and tells you what the best deal is, essentially. If you have ever actually downloaded their app, like I have, you'll also find that the app itself is very easy to navigate, and most of the time you can even preview the seats, and then you just buy the ticket. So if that sounds like something you're into, then click the link down in the description below. You can download SeatGeek and use my promo code MDJ for $20 off of your first purchase. Okay, now on to Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson fits very neatly into the modern prototype of what some people like to call a rim runner. Essentially, athletic centers who can protect the rim on defense are good rebounders with their size and leaping ability, and on offense, they take on the role of setting picks, catching lobs, and the occasional putback. They don't shoot and they rarely post up. DeAndre Jordan fits this prototype, so does Clint Capella, Rudy Gobert, Hassan Whiteside, JaVale McGee, etc. And of course, all of these players have their own particular weaknesses and strengths. They may not fit all of the above criteria, but they all fit this general mold. Casual NBA fans know Mitchell Robinson because he is an amazing athlete who has put on amazing dunks. And the result of this is that he gets a lot of comparisons to another big athletic center in recent memory who has had amazing dunks, his now teammate, DeAndre Jordan. I think that this is an alright comparison. But I also think that Mitchell Robinson will be better than DeAndre Jordan. And we can try to dissect this skill set by skill set. So first we have finishing around the rim. Now people don't often think of catching lobs as a skill because it seems to be an athletic ability, and it mostly is, but it is also a skill. The skill component, of course, is timing. No matter how high you can jump, you still need to jump at the right moment in synchronization with the lobber to catch the lob. It's true that the higher you jump, the more room for error you have in terms of timing, but that room for error also starts to shrink when you're matched up against a good rim protector like Rudy Gobert. I think in large part because DeAndre Jordan has spent so many years playing with one of the greatest point guards of all time, he actually has a very good sense of timing on offense. And timing is not something you can really work on in the gym, but rather it comes from experience and chemistry with your teammates. Although I do think that there are some little tips and tricks with this stuff that you can teach someone. And Mitchell Robinson being able to learn this from DeAndre Jordan during practice every day is great.
7 for 9 from you tonight, your best offensive effort of the season, 15 points. How is your timing around the rim improved?
Improved very well. I mean, especially having DeAndre around. He helps me out a lot at practice, and I had to translate it to the game.
So with this in mind, Mitchell Robinson's offensive potential, perhaps just as a rim runner, has yet to be unlocked. And especially because he doesn't really have a great ball handler or passer yet to kind of toss him those lobs. And let's not underestimate that last part. Heat fans will tell you that these last couple years, Hassan Whiteside's ability to get easy buckets around the rim, to catch lobs, has always been much higher whenever Dwayne Wade is on the floor. And that's because Dwayne Wade, ever since LeBron left, has been the Heat's best passer. And of course, Dwayne himself is actually quite good at tossing lobs, given all the experience he got with Shaq and then LeBron. There's another component to finishing around the rim, and that's touch. Touch is something that can be very hard to judge. There's not really any statistics for it, and it relies a lot on just the eye test. But for me personally, and this is just a personal theory and unproven theory, I think that there's a significant correlation between a big man's free throw percentage and their general touch around the rim. Robinson is currently about 60% from the free throw line, which is not great, but also is a passable figure, certainly way ahead of DeAndre Jordan when he was a rookie. His form is decent, and I don't see why he can't get to 70% eventually with practice. But even at 60%, that's good enough to a point where opposing teams cannot really hack it. And if you want to understand why that is, you can watch the video I made a while back on the imperfect mathematics behind why Hack-a-Shaq sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. If you look back at DeAndre Jordan's career, his big breakout season was in 2013, where it was the first year that Doc Rivers was coaching the Clippers. And in 2013, one of his big improvements that he made was with rebounding. And you can see this statistically. If you look at rebounds per 100 possessions, DeAndre Jordan went from about 15.6 to 19.4 between 2013 and 2014, while playing about 10 more minutes per game. So that's a very big improvement. And specifically, most of this improvement came via defensive rebounding and not offensive rebounding. This is one area where Mitchell Robinson actually has a lot to work on. As of right now, he's 13.9 rebounds per 100 possessions. He's 15% with total rebounding percentage, which is what percentage of available rebounds you grab on the floor. Both those numbers are actually a little bit lower than DeAndre's early career figures, and most of that gap is from defense. By the metrics, Robinson is a better offensive rebounder, but a much worse defensive rebounder. We then come to shot blocking. Now, much has been made about Mitchell Robinson's blocks, perhaps even more so than his dunks. And admittedly, some of these blocks that he makes are truly amazing, almost superhuman. He definitely has a knack for timing blocks. Opponents often underestimate his length and thus get their jump shots blocked, and his weak side help is also pretty good. He averages 2.4 blocks per game, despite playing only 19 minutes per game. And if you adjust his minutes and his possessions, he's actually the league leader in blocks, and on par with some of Dikembe Mutombo's best shot blocking season. So people might look at these insane block numbers and go, oh my goodness, he's only going to get better from now, right? So he's going to keep improving. He's going to end up the greatest shot blocker of this generation. And I'm not saying that that's impossible, but I would say right now, as sort of a caution, but also as a prediction, that you will see Mitchell Robinson's blocks per game, or blocks per 100 possessions, I should say, because he's going to play more minutes. So his block rate is going to go down, and that's actually a good thing. And let me explain. Remember how in the beginning of the video I talked about the prototype of the rim runners, right? So Jordan, Capella, Gobert, Whiteside even. If you just look at those four guys, for example, for those four guys, their best shot blocking season in terms of blocks per 100 possessions all occurred within their rookie years. And all four of these guys were not that good in their rookie year. With Capella and Gobert, they were at about 5.0 blocks per 100 possessions. So definitely lower than Mitchell's this year, but that number slowly dropped as the years went on. Same thing with the aforementioned Mutombo. His early career seasons were his best shot blocking seasons. And I think this is because shot blocking is just a really poor measurement of defensive impact. It is such a poor measure that shot blocking could even be counterproductive if you're trying to measure a player's defensive impact. Because a center whose, let's say, primary objective is to block shots is not a good defender. And on the other hand, you can be a very good defender in today's NBA without being a great shot blocking center. Al Horford is a fantastic example of that. Because here's the issue. Blocking a shot is almost always a positive result. It's almost always good whenever you can block a shot. However, attempting to block a shot is not always good. Attempting to block a shot almost always involves you jumping. And when you're jumping in the air as a defender, that's when you're vulnerable because you immediately lose the ability to reposition yourself on defense. And of course, the more shots you try to block, the more shots you end up blocking. So to bring this back to Mitchell Robinson, for instance, it's hard to tell exactly how often he should be attempting these blocks and how many of these failed block attempts he has. Now again, it would be kind of cool to see a statistic where you could calculate a sort of block efficiency, which is essentially how many times this player has attempted to block a shot, how many times do they actually successfully block it. Now the reason why this statistic hasn't, and I don't think ever will be invented, is because it's really difficult to judge what should count as a block attempt versus, let's say, a normal contest. So it's not a feasible statistic, but I think if you get the concept, you understand why blocking shots, or at least having a high block percentage, is not always something you necessarily want to strive towards. So this is all to say that I actually think Mitchell Robinson's blocking ability is overrated, not because of how good of a shot blocker he already is, because trust me, he is amazing. When I say his shot blocking is overrated, it's just that it's not as important as a lot of the other stuff. So if you're a Knicks fan, what I would suggest is don't root for Mitchell Robinson to break all the shot blocking records. If that happens, cool, fantastic, great. What you should be rooting for instead would be to see him develop more patience. Because one of the hallmarks for a good development within a young center is a gradual decrease in the frequency with which they commit fouls. Mitchell Robinson right now is committing 8 personal fouls per 100 possessions. That number was 7.7 for Capella when he was a rookie, 6.9 during Gobert's rookie year, and 6.5 during DeAndre's rookie year. And those 3 guys, again, have all gotten better as the years went on, and so will Mitchell Robinson in terms of fouling less and less. Again, this is something that will come with experience and getting used to NBA rules. But you have to remember that DeAndre Jordan was a very, very slow developer. As a rookie, Robinson is already at about where DeAndre was in his 3rd year in the league. And I think that Robinson, in terms of raw talent, is actually an even better athlete than Jordan. And last but not least, and I meant to save this for the very last, because this is actually what I think will definitively put Robinson ahead of DeAndre Jordan as a basketball player, is his agility. Now, agility for a rim running center is important in 2 ways, right? One is for switching onto guards or perimeter players, and second is to contain pick and rolls. And we live in a pick and roll league, which means Robinson on defense spends more time containing and recovering than he does doing stuff like this. The importance of being able to keep up with a guard and then quickly establish positional advantage against the big man is so important that it's one of the bases for why someone like Al Horford is a pretty good defender, because he's really good at doing this type of stuff. There's also switching. Now, in the brief moments where Robinson has switched onto perimeter players, he has looked pretty darn good. And you compare this with DeAndre, who for his size is not a bad switch defender, but is not nearly as good as someone like Clint Capella, let's say. And I think Robinson can potentially be as good a switch defender as Clint Capella is. So what I really mean when I say that I think Mitchell Robinson will actually end up being better than DeAndre Jordan is that I think he's a more talented DeAndre Jordan with potentially the agility of a Clint Capella. And that last skill is something that cannot be understated. Or perhaps to put it in more simpler terms, he's Clint Capella with a 40-inch vertical. That is his ceiling. And if that happens, you're looking at an all-NBA player. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you very much. If you know a Knicks fan in real life, first of all, please give them a hug because they really need a hug. But secondly, send them this video because perhaps they need a little bit of hope in their miserable lives. Because trust me, it's not going to get better this next upcoming free agency where they end up signing Chris Middleton to a max contract. If you haven't watched my previous video where I talked about whether or not the hot hand effect exists in the NBA, you should definitely go check that out. That video, I spent a lot of time working on it. It's some very unique stuff that I don't think you would find anywhere else on YouTube. So definitely go check out that video if you haven't watched it already. I have a Q&A video coming out soon, which I will take the questions from Twitter. So that will probably happen within about a week of posting this video. So look out for that. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.